Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Hopefully out there. My name is Jane Thayer. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm just adjusting a few things on there we go. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm the program manager of Artists in Residence in the Everglades, and I am joined by AIRIE Fellow Arsimmer McCoy and her collaborator and filmmaker, Faren Humes. As you can see tonight, we are still live on Zoom, but we also have a live studio audience for the recording, which you can see behind me, which is really exciting for us because we've been doing a lot of virtual programming. The first thing that I do want to do before we start is acknowledge those who've lived here before us. Artist in Residence in Everglades works on the homeland of Indigenous nations, such as the former Tequesta and Calusa, and the current Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida, and the Seminole tribe of Florida. Additionally, this area is home to generations of people belonging to the African diaspora and others who have migrated here. We honor and respect the contributions these communities, past, present, and future, have made to Miami, and acknowledge that our shared experience in Miami would not be what it is without the contributions of these communities. AIRIE's mission in partnership with Everglades National Park is to empower artists to think creatively and critically about their relationship to the environment in order to reveal new paths forward. This mission would not be possible without donors that include the Knight Foundation, the George M. Perez Family Foundation at the Miami Foundation, the Wege Foundation, Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs, and the Florida Department of State Division of Arts and Culture, among others. A couple things I want to note very quickly. There is live transcription available. There will also, you can click the button below to see the live transcription. There will be a brief Q&A at the end of the conversation, so feel free to put your questions in the chat. And please stay until the end of the conversation for a brief audience survey. Your feedback's very helpful to us. So what I'm gonna do now is quickly turn on the camera to Faren and Arsimmer. Let's see. Oh, I can turn off those things as well. Okay. Is that distracting? The subtitles? No, the subtitles. Okay, super. So because we are doing this live, unrehearsed live, Arsimmer and Faren may be talking to the room. They'll also be talking to you online, but I want to let you know a little bit about them. Arsimmer McCoy was in residence in Everglades National Park in February, and she is a Miami Gardens, Florida-based storyteller. I'm sorry, there's beautiful comments coming in. I'll tell you about them later. Okay, so she's a collaborative artist, educator, and cultural worker who has been dedicated to these disciplines for over a decade. Raised in Richmond Heights, Florida, McCoy earned her bachelor's degree of arts and literature at Florida Memorial University. She has performed around the world alongside, they just keep coming, these beautiful comments. Okay. Alongside artists of multiple disciplines, and considers it her obligation to bring back the knowledge and stories to her students in South Florida. McCoy produces work in the form of poetry, short story, literature, creative writing, performance, educational workshops, and creative direction. Farron Humes is a filmmaker from Miami and Sanderson, Florida, melding narrative and documentary conventions to explore and invoke continuation. Her work has screened with jury recognition at Berlinale, International Kurzfilmtage Winterthur, South by Southwest, AFI Fest, Chicago International Film Festival, and Miami Film Festival. She holds fellowships with United States artists, Guggenheim Foundation, and Harvard Radcliffe Institute, and is currently in residence at Ulite as she furthers a body of work concerning the legacy, continuation, and interconnectedness of Black Miami. So Without further ado, I'm going to stop talking, and Arsimmer and Farron are going to discuss the residency and collaboration that they had this past month. Hold on, here we go. There you go.
The best thing about being here is
yes,
like
yes, yes.
bust through all of the nerves.
Yes.
By like touching you.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative, and I'm glad that it's you sitting here. You are somebody who's so intentional in their work and so intentional in relationship building and community. And so when I was asked, who I would want sitting in this chair, I could not think of anybody else. So grateful that you're here. And yes, I'm very nervous. It is a lot of people sitting back here. I don't know if y'all saw, but it's a lot of people sitting back here. They're just really nice. They're really fancy. And, I just won my family reunion shirt for 2008. I felt like I should. It was a nice family reunion shirt, right? Ooh, okay, all right, I had to get that out. Sis.
But thank you for addressing that. I told Arsimmer, I was like, we're gonna have to address the elephant in the room, which is all these spectators. So not only y'all amongst us and body present, but the folks out there with us as well. I ask that you be with us. You are with us, so be with us in a communal way. Because we'll be able to feel it either way. So thank you. Thank y'all for being here as well.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the land acknowledgement, Jane. And thank you, Tracy,
yes,
the lovely owner of this
kingdom. Wakanda.
Y'all can't see it, but we're
in Wakanda. Or a private plane hangar, I don't know. But we are here.
I wish you could see. We're here.
I wish my grandmama could see this too. For real. I used to pray for times like this. Okay. I'm ready.
Well, I took some notes.
Okay. I know the whole time we were out in the glades, I saw you just writing. I was like, oh my goodness, what is she taking away from us?
Well, I took some notes today. I recorded the entire dinner that we had from the dock to the boarding of the boat to our dinner. So we're gonna talk about it. Yes. This morning I was sewing the hem of this dress in my room by the window, and I just put on that entire 3-hour conversation. It wasn't labor. I was fed today all throughout the day. So a lot of that is still fresh in my mind. Get into it. But first, I guess we should. I want to know about your experience with AIRIE. This is your experience with AIRIE. It's my introduction to AIRIE. So how was it as an artist?
So let's start first as just a city kid, as just a person who grew up in the city, a person who was used to sounds all the time. In Miami Gardens, I lived directly next to the police station and the ambulance and the city hall. So you're talking about round the clock, every day, 24 hours. I'm hearing sirens, I'm hearing music, I'm hearing people. And I am lulled to sleep by it. I need sound. And I didn't even realize that until I was out there. My anxiety was so bad. It was so silent, okay? There were tiny bugs that make noise that I never heard of. There were birds. I don't know if you've ever heard of the catbird. Okay, there's a thing called a catbird that sounds like a giant cat. When you go outside, there's no cat, it's a bird. And so that was very jarring. So there were real moments where, even though, you know, in my city, I am familiar with, you know, what berries you can eat off the gate and what you can't, you know. We know about sea grapes, you know, we know about the pigeons and the doves that, you know, coo in the morning, you know, but you don't realize until you're really steeped in nature, like this is real nature, okay, that you realize you don't know a thing, okay, and you don't know a thing about being still. And so AIRIE was when I say it was transformative, I mean in that way that there was an awakening inside of me about my own disconnect, that I thought I was connected because I do have an understanding of the need for connection, but still there was a disconnect in being able to like take it in and be okay with it, the stillness. I was always trying to run home. I was like, yo, I'm an hour away from the crib. I'll be back, you know? And I did that for the first week, actually. I went back, I went to my parents' house, and I came back up. I was wasting a lot of gas off of anxiety. Anxiety is expensive. Yeah, it will cost you. But a beautiful moment, I brought my daughter up. My daughter is 11 years old. Hi, Haley, if you're watching. And she came up for President's Weekend. And we went to the Ahinga Trail. We walked it. It was a gator right there on the sidewalk. She was like, are we dead now? Like, are we, is this it? Like, mommy, you know? And she was actually kind of like taken aback by my calmness, because I cry about spiders, you know? And I'm like, it's fine, girl. They're used to people, you know? Now I got it, you know? One weekend, you know? But she then now has a better understanding of being outdoors and being in nature, and seeing her mom, who she knows is terrified, you know, of the bumps and the little insects, is telling her the gator is fine. Like, you're fine. You're with me. Let's keep walking. She fell in love with birds. Like, she's now been reading like all these different books on birds. The cat bird brought her in. She loved it. She thought it was the greatest thing she'd ever heard of. So as a mother, you know, coming in AIRIE, you know, that was very transformative. As an artist coming in AIRIE, I had to really think about my self-motivation when it comes to projects, and how much I'm willing to do to research, to educate myself. AIRIE provides all the resources. You know, they lay everything out, anything that you want to know. Here, you can go here, you can go here. We got this person, Shout out to Jane. She's like the hookup, the plug, if you will. And she pointed me in all the right directions. But it takes you taking the initiative. It is, I appreciated that I was shown what, like, how do I explain it? Like how we always have to labor over explaining ourselves and explaining our culture, right? I saw that with background. Like, we are the land, we've been here, we've been thriving here, we've been waiting on you. So here it is, now go do the work. So as an artist, I really was challenged in, you know, how much am I gonna get steeped into it? And also, I wanted to do things I had never done before. I had a taste of that through Light Arts at the Atlanta Center of the Arts Residency, which is a nomination-based residency. And I had a taste of that being amongst all these amazing artists like Cornelius, you know, like Edney, and watching them work and watching them process. And it affirmed me that I could delve into other parts of my artistry. So AIRIE, so the seed was planted. AIRIE was like go out, you know, they opened it up and said, go out, here you go, do it. Look, it's land. Just go get in there. Just take pictures, which we actually ended up doing. That was crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. We'll talk about that later. So I covered AIRIE as a mother, covered AIRIE as an artist, and just AIRIE as a whole. Tremendous amount of support. I felt very welcomed. and I felt like my artistry was respected. Poets, man, we get a really good rap, or we get a really bad rap. Like it's one or the other. And when I say, you know, good or bad rap, I really just mean as far as how people view the work and respect the work. You know, a lot of folks do not understand that there are spoken word artists and poets that have been moving in this city for years, building for years, community around the art. Will the Real One Bell, if you all do not know this name, please take a moment to learn about him. Will the Real One Bell actually built a building called the Literary Cafe. He didn't build it, he bought it, my bad. He bought the Literary Cafe, and its primary purpose was just to be a hub for poets to go to write, education, to practice, to perform, and hone in on their craft. He is the reason that a lot of poets even know that they can expand and expound upon their craft to the point where they can live, make a living, you know? Again? Will the Real One Bell. Will, D-A, the real one, okay? Now, please, he was actually Miami Times 2005 Poet of the Year. So please take a moment to look him up. But yeah, to be able to push the limits on where poetry can go as I continue to do, the way poetry educates and the way that poetry heals is so incredibly important. What you doing back there? Don't be breaking these people's stuff. Don't you see all this stuff in here? Oh my goodness. Is it dope?
It's
Okay.
we're gonna let it slide. I want to go back to stillness.
Stillness.
So on our boat ride, there were 2 stops where we stopped.
Yes.
We stopped and had moments of reflection for whatever came up. And that first moment, it was you directing us to, or guiding us to be aware of the stillness and what came up for you. And you share what you just, a little bit of what you just shared with everyone in the room. And in your sharing, you also mentioned the sense of, or what was so challenging to you when you got to the Everglades was the sense of not being needed, and you reckoning with that. Can you talk about that and like how the land?
You're my business.
I know. Sorry, give us a peek. How it complicated your pre-existing notion of being needed? Like, did it bust that up?
I had made the plans prior to the residency for my child. You know, she was with my mother. I had made plans with, you know, other folks that I was working with, other projects that I had going on. I let them know, you know, I'm going to be here for a month. And so everybody was understanding. Everybody was, you know, pretty lenient. This is a big opportunity. So, you know, everybody supported. But when everybody's supportive, yes, this is good, but then your phone's not ringing. And you're used to it ringing, and you're used to your calendar, bing, bing, and you're used to getting a text, you know, just following up, you know. And none of that was taking place. I felt very held, but very alone, if that makes sense. Like, I understood everybody was trying to respect my wishes and was trying to, you know, show me support in that way. But, you know, even my kid, you know, like, she didn't call me for like a week. And I was like, what's up, you dead? Like, what's going on? And she was just like, no, mommy, I know you're there. We're fine. You know, like, so I think for a lot of people that have an understanding of community or come from, you know, a close-knit community, close-knit families, or even have a person in their life, you know, that they have a bond with. We are always constantly putting out, we're always constantly supporting, and we're always constantly being there for other folks. And so, you know, when you are not met with that challenge, when you are just able to be as beautiful as it is, it can be uncomfortable. And there was moments of uncomfortability where I felt like, you know, oh, I'm here, but, you know, what's going on over there? a weird type of FOMO. So that's why in Homecoming, you know, I talked about the stillness. And to take it back, when I brought my baby up, and then she left, I took her back to my mom's, and then I came back up actually immediately afterwards. Her spirit was in the space, like her energy was there. I knew that she had been there. And so I was able then to go to sleep. I was able to like connect with the space better, you know, and stay there finally. Because I had that. Every time I go to go out of town or anything like that, I actually take like a frame picture. It's a picture of my grandmother, my Uncle Shapiro, and my mom. They're shoving cake in my grandmother's face, but not all the way because my grandma did not play that. So it's just a cute little, we might, you know, type of situation. A picture of my daughter. It's like my favorite picture of my daughter, and a picture of Malcolm X. I know that sounds super cliche, but I do. I take a picture of Malcolm X wherever I go. Talk to yourself about it. Don't talk to me. And I also take the barbershop clips that my grandfather earned after he graduated from barber school. They're like the real old school, like cutting with them on the thing, and it's in this box. So I take these as literal talismans, you know, to protect me in a space, to remind me of what I'm doing there, and to remind me of the people, you know, that have me and understand me and support me when I'm in space. So when we got out there, it was like it was being actualized. Like my mother was there, you were there, my daughter was on the airboat, my friends in the artist community were there, my aunts. It was the first time for my father that he had been to the Everglades since he was, you know, since I was a baby. We used to fish out there by the power plant, which I don't think nobody's supposed to be fishing out there by that power plant, but it is what it is. I'm here. I'm sitting here with y'all, so something, maybe it was good fish. I don't know. But they stop people from doing that because I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do that. And my dad is watching. You're fine, okay? The statute of limitation on that is probably you're fine. I'm here. They can't say anything. Why you blow up, man? I had to blow him up. This is no ain't supposed to have me out there fishing at no power plant. But to see him, you know, almost like, you know, childlike and light on his feet, you know, and letting his guard down and being freaked out by the gator, that was funny too. Like I never seen my dad like afraid. He wasn't afraid, but he was a little, you know, he was a little like, don't come over here, you know.
Tell about the gator.
Tell about.
And then tell us why you were out there.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, everybody's like, what are they talking about? So Homecoming was a project, and I hope to continue it, where we talk about the connectivity between Black and Indigenous folks, and focusing on those relationships, how we have been disconnected from each other, how do we get back to each other, what are the conversations we need to be having. I don't like to dance around things. I believe that discourse is necessary, even if it gets a little heated, you know, as long as we respect each other, we can understand each other, but we have to communicate. Nothing happens if we, you know, just sit around and read the books. You can read the text all day. You can, you know, do the research all day, but if you don't put it in action, you know, where does it fall? Where does it land? And so I wanted us to go out there. I'm so thankful for Reverend Houston Cypress and Betty Osceola, who both believed in this project. And Houston and I sat on the phone and I told him what I wanted to do. Well, first of all, I wouldn't say that I like almost jumped on his back at the art fair, but maybe I almost jumped on his back. Their back, I'm sorry. But Houston Cypress is somebody I've been watching for a long, long time. And the work that he puts in Love with the Everglades, they put in, I apologize, is so amazing. And so Houston listened to me, told me, look, you know, let's not make this basic. You really want to go out there? You really want to talk about these things? Let's go out to the land. Let's get on an airboat. Let's have dinner. Let's break bread. Let's do the things. I was like, you could have started at dinner, you know? But I was thankful that they dreamed with me, that they wanted to dream with me. And so Houston takes it a step further, connects with Betty, and then we get out there on this boat and we're taking the journey together and we're learning together. Betty Osceola cooks us indigenous food. My aunt cooks food as well. So now we have the merging of two cuisines together. And you taste it and you realize how similar they are, just in cuisine alone. And then the conversation started. And we all learned, I think, so much about how the division between us is not real. That a narrative has been strung together to create an unrealistic division. Seminole and Black folk have been together since almost, the dawning of time, since this land, was stolen. One of the most powerful things that I read was that runaway slaves would put leather around their legs to run through Cyprus to get to freedom-seeking people. When you think about that type of resilience, when you research how much was put in to being free, you feel a completely different way about your existence on this earth. And you realize that the narrative that has been built around you has all been a lie. And so we learned about some of those lies out there on that land. And we were able to connect in a very real way. And I was thankful for it, but we also were able to talk about solutions. And so homecoming was just one of those solutions, and trying to build back our relationships and trying to build back our connectivity with one another, because the power is in the collective, always.
You also mentioned birthrights as a part of the solution as well.
I think that a birthright trip for especially people who live here in Miami, Florida, for people of color should be funded, should be something that we get behind, where young folks, young kids from all over the city of Miami should be able to go out to the Glades and get education, not just if your school decides to take you on a field trip. Like, it's mandated that all these kids, this time, you are going to take your birthright trip. You're going to learn about this land. You're going to learn about the people that were here before, because it's not a shock that it's not in schools for a reason. The depths of the history and the education of the indigenous folks, it's on purpose. It's strategic. And so how do we dismantle that? We start with the education on our own, even if it's funded by our own communities, right? If Liberty City puts together a birthright trip funding project, if Little Haiti puts together a birthright trip funding project, everybody does their own thing and sends their kids down there, so that not only a better understanding of the people and the education, but just so you know the land, just so you have a better understanding of what you're surrounded by, and you are able to recognize plants and trees and birds and animals and know these things. I had the privilege of going with Betty Osceola to one of her classes that she taught. And it's a very small group, just a small group of kids. They were like 4 to 6, maybe. There might have been, and I think there was like a 10 or 11-year-old, 2 of them in the group as well. These kids knew trees I didn't even know. They were walking up to them like, that's red dust, and touching it and like, oh, I can eat that, and gathering. And I said, my God, if I would have had this in school, if just one teacher who had the knowledge, no matter what color they were, took us out into the the field where the kids go to play, spill out area, and went up to the gate and said, this is this. Now you don't want to touch that. That's not good for you. This grass right here, this is this type of grass, this type of turf. This is where you can find this. That is important education. That is necessary education.
Essential. I'm thinking like a disconnection from land, it sort of rips you of a whole chunk of a language that you're contending with. I'm thinking about Betty Osceola, and she mentioned that we were talking about identity. She brought up indigeneity, how we should, as Black people, should identify ourselves. And long story short,
That was interesting.
it was very interesting. We'll get into that. But she mentioned like it's not so much that they refer to themselves as red versus white versus Black. We went into that, which is that officially they consider themselves people of the red flag. And again, just like the intimacy and kinship with land, informing one's language, and the language we continue to take up, use, honor. So I think about like what is lost, what are some lost chunks of my own language that we have to start contending with just by the very nature of our spatial politics and the way that we've been disconnected from it.
Yeah. And also the saturation of not being able to use your own language, thinking that you need some extra in your speech to be validated, to be this thing or not this thing. I make it a point when I write my pieces to speak in my own voice as I'm talking to you, as I would talk to my child, as I would talk to my mother, my father, because it's bigger than just, the people who love the work. It's about the people who feel like this work is too here for them to have access to, this upper echelon, artistry. I can't possibly be a part of this. Yeah, this is your language, this is your voice. I'm right here, and I'm speaking directly to you, and you understand me and I understand you. It is important also that you know that this is your language as well. So yeah, we gotta move on. I'm so long.
5 minutes.
Then we'll take some questions.
Let's talk about okay. So we talked about solutions. In our homecoming project, we talked about solutions, dreams as forms of solutions. We talked about spatial politics.
Crystal, yes.
Fellow poet,
Yes,
Crystal, she reflected on, we only got five minutes, but shout out to Crystal, making just very hard-hitting points about spatial politics. And she dimensionalized this. I think the narrative is always like spatial politics being one where we're moved about and that being like a disservice to us. But she found empowerment in our history of movement. She's saying that we're always moving. Movement is in our blood.
Nomadic.
So I appreciated that. Prayer and food is activism. Betty Osceola talks about her initiative in the Everglades, bringing attention to the water contamination there, and how everything doesn't have to be violence, confrontation. There is a need, and there's always a place for that. But she also talked about the power of peace and reconciliation amongst ourselves, and what can that do in prayer and food. And we were actively doing that as she was talking about that. We talked about the Seminole Wars and then the term of Black people taking up the term of Indigenous, whether or not we should. So I'm just going over reflections.
Yeah, and I hope y'all are hearing this, because we would love to, for people to chime in, for people to send messages to AIRIE about just some of the things that we're going over. Because there were a number of interesting conversations. I didn't even expect it to expand into that, what we call ourselves and having. I was like, oh, okay. Like we're going there. So, yeah.
Thinking about how you reflected after, what were some moments or elements or feelings that stuck with you, left the most impression?
Definitely So first of all, I want to give a shout out to the rangers in the park. Brother Leon, if you go out to the Everglades, please take a tour from Brother Leon. Okay, I call him that. Y'all can't call him that. You gotta take some time, you know. But Brother Leon is an amazing ranger, and Sister Barbara, who was so maternal and always checking in on me and making sure I was, okay. But it was her being instrumental in bringing me, in connecting me to Audrey Peterman, who knew my grandmother, Leola McCoy, who was an environmental activist, and they worked together, actually. And it's been interesting because my grandmother is like an unsung hero. People who know about the work and people who, are committed to community advocacy, they know of what she did in Fort Lauderdale. But she's not, mentioned with some other names, organizing spaces. So Audrey, not only her just being like, oh, you're Leola's grandmother, she wrote it in big caps and was like, she has come home. So, like that was a moment. That was
She's here. She's watching, by the way.
Oh man. I think about sometimes, I'm about to go bad left field, but and I would love to hear what y'all think. I would think about sometimes, what is Blue Ivy Carter gonna do? Right? Like y'all never had this thought. Like honestly, to me, I think she's gonna go into real estate. Like it's gonna be like some real, like she's gonna be like the queen of real estate, right? But it's not. I just feel like it's not gonna be that. And I say that because when you come from such a huge figure, your mama is Beyonce, your daddy is Jay-Z, you're gonna attempt that walk? Like you gonna really do that? You're gonna try to be sis, like I'm sure she would still be embraced in the same way. My grandmother was Beyonce to me. She was a powerhouse. So much so, and I mean, she spoke truth to power. My family and I, we have our different approaches to how we felt she handled certain things because she did not know how to play the game. She didn't know how to placate her words. She was very transparent, and she let the powers that be know exactly what they were doing. They were killing people intentionally through their resources. And when she had the opportunity to go into office, she had backing. She had folks who were like, yeah, but she could not sit idly by, and just be comfortable with the way things were, or even just have the niceties about certain things. And so I think that's why she's unsung, a little bit, and why, not much conversation is around her work, but Audrey affirmed to me her power and affirmed to me that, I ain't gotta run, that clearly Leola's gonna find me and make me do what she want me to do anyway. And that she is present in my work and she's present in me. And now there's a whole nother aspect to my artistry, a whole nother aspect to my work that I feel comfortable now moving in because of meeting Audrey and because of AIRIE as a whole being the reason that
I don't know if everyone can hear me, but there's questions, so you can reiterate the question. But one of the questions I'm most excited about is, are you two amazing artists collaborating on work? Can you repeat the question?
We are
witnessing
it right now.
Yes. She expensive. She's very expensive.
Pull out the Chelsea bag.
She been, first of all, okay. That was a gift. Then one of them was a gift. Yes, we are collaborating. We have collaborated. Farron, as you can tell, has this amazing way of getting you to talk and be emotional. Didn't we not just go on a roller coaster? I was not surprised, you know, like God. She is amazing at that, but also in just like the way you dig, you know, the way you dig deep, the way you tell stories through your films, you know, the way you talk about, you know, what's happening in the city of Miami, you know. But we are collaborating. I hope we collaborate more. But she is expensive. She is right.
We are collaborating. Arsimmer just so I created. Trying to be succinct with this. So we did a scene, like a fictional narrative thread. That's what I'm talking about. In the Beans, like last month. Yeah. And it was surrounding care. And creating this scenario where I was thinking about what if there was an honorable someone or something in the community that their only duty was to care. And the thought came to me was a care troubadour, someone that wakes up at the crack of dawn, and the community, whoever needs to have some form of love or care, they hear this voice at the beginning of the day. And whoever needs it, they step out into their threshold, and it could be, you know, a word of encouragement or a hug.
I'm just thinking about how you had me up in the morning singing at the crack of dawn through the Beans.
Because who, if you know Arsimmer, I was like, who can give the hug that heals? Who can do it? And I literally gasped. I said, it's Arsimmer. And I called her, and she was
sleep,
gracious, and down to do it. And it was, you haven't witnessed it yet, but you witnessed it in your being there. Yes. We witnessed the power of duration and not being disrupted in terms of our connectedness. And so anyway, yeah, we collaborate, and I'm thankful for it.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. And then where can we see your work with AIRIE eventually, and what work would we be looking forward to in the future?
So you can see the work that I have done with AIRIE, hopefully for the end of this year. That'd be beautiful. Also, because I signed a contract. And you can see it on my website as well when it airs. Hopefully AIRIE will also put that on their website. Yeah.
So another one of our AIRIE Fellows, Onajide Shabaka, wonders, and you can repeat the question, were you able to walk into the Cypress Dome, and how was that experience for you? Yeah,
I don't know if I mentioned that the runaway slaves, they put leather on their legs. I don't know if you heard that part of it. I was able to walk in the Cypress Dome in the slough. Is that the slough, correct?
The slough. You slogged through the slough.
Let me tell you, right? Because Cornelius was here before, okay? Let me tell you how they got me to get in the slough, okay? They were like, Cornelius did it. He had a great time. You should come on. It's great. Man, first of all, they gave me a stick. I should have known when they gave me a staff, okay? That I was about to, right, a staff, like, where are we going? And it was magical, but it was a little terrifying. I'm not gonna lie to you. Your feet get stuck in some places. You have to like really like dig with the staff to know where you're going. But I will say by the end of it, I was a Glades woman, okay? I was knowledgeable of Earth. And how it moves and where to walk and where not to walk. I knew those things. I was helping other people pass over as my ancestors. It was bad. I learned a lot about myself. We'll say that. But I was thankful the ranger, shout outs to Ranger Dan, okay, who got us up. It was so funny though, I know, super fast. This lady, when we first met up, she was like, are there gators out there? And the man was like, yeah, there's gators. And she goes, well, I don't want to see them. And I turned to her and I was like, you can't go into somebody's house and tell them you don't want to see them in their house. Like, it's my house. And so that's the other thing is when you step into these spaces, you have to honor the fact that this is not your house. You are connected to it. There is a connection. You know, this is familiar and we know this place, as Sonny Patterson would say, but at the same time, you are subjected to whatever is about to pop off up in here, okay? It is what it is. And there's a stillness that comes over you once you acknowledge that as well. Yeah.
That's surrendering.
Yeah, surrender. Exactly. Exactly.
We're gonna take a couple questions from the room. So, is that Cornelius? Cornelius.
Just knowing your work and kind of expressing it in such a great way. How do you think this time spent in the Everglades has one allowed you to build a connection between the two, like an Indian proper, like an Indian, and kind of how do you think this will impact the way that you do Black writing now as you have made this connection?
I try to make it a point to educate, not just on like a large scale, but also like the micro stories in the city of Miami and the micro stories of the city of Miami, because we have different layers of education, right? There's the scholarship, there's like, you know, the hustle, and then there's, you know, the, what would you call them? Like urban myths, but they're not necessarily urban myths. Like they actually happened and you should actually know them and remember them, because this education is also how you maneuver through the city, right? This is also like your badge of honor. You should know about the stove in Paran, and you should know that it's called stove, S-T-O, with an apostrophe on top. You should know how long it's been there. If you walk, and we learn this from when we're small. We watch other folks try to come into different areas and different neighborhoods, and how do we know if you're from here, or how do we know if you're going to respect this space? Is by your acknowledgement of these small nuances of education, right? And so now with the education that I've received in the Everglades, I can now put that education into telling our stories, telling new stories. I submitted, actually, I did a like, if my grandmother, I was thinking like if my grandmother had a song about a story that connected us to our Indigenous roots, what would it sound like? And I did some research on the Seminole Wars, and I learned about Henry Faren, yeah, and the work that he did, and also, you know, that while he was out there helping them, you know, build the land back up, he got hacked to death, okay, during the Seminole War that took place on the island. And yes, this is a good God-fearing man, brought his family out there. He didn't mean anybody no harm, but he ended up a part of the problem. And so I created this almost cautionary tale, as most of our songs are, cautionary tales, guidance, you know, of what that would sound like, what that would look like. And so I wrote this piece about Henry Faren, you know, and don't be in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and understanding that like, sometimes you can mean well, but you have to look at the bigger picture of what you're doing and how that doing affects the people around you. So yeah, it's just now I am able now to pull those things into my artistry, pull those things into my education, especially when it comes to my students. I've loved coming back to them and talking to them about my everything that happened in the Everglades. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, let's do one more from the room, and then we might have a couple more from online. Did you want to ask, or anyone else?
Everybody here is ready to eat.
Yeah. There's one more question, which I think is really great, which is from Audrey Peterman. What has your daughter said to her friends about the experiences you've shared with her?
So she came up, like I said, on President's Weekend, and first of all, my heart was so full just seeing her. So there's like the back area, back porch, it's screened in, and she's sitting back there, and like the curtains are back and the sun is in. I'm just looking at my kid, you know, like on her laptop. I'm like, oh my God, you know, she looks so comfortable. And so I'm videotaping her, and the door's a little bit cracked. So I hear her like, hey, bruh, we are in nature. She said, I don't know what my mama done did now, but we in nature, girl. I'm gonna call you. And so she calls her, she's like looking around, but she has picked up, so I've always wanted my daughter to write. And for some reason, I think she has a kind of anxiety about it because I write. And she couldn't help but do it while she was out there. And so now she's picked up her pen, and she started writing pieces. And I believe that's attributed to her having space. Because we went to the Iunga Trail, and she started writing when we sat out at Robert is Here. She wrote a poem about the animals, in particular about how the goats kept stepping on the turtle. And I can't remember because those animals are cutthroat about seeds. And so she started writing there, and then we went, oh my goodness, I'm gonna forget, where we saw that little snake, and you wouldn't come on.
Yeah.
The Pinelands. Man, Jane is an adventurer, okay? She almost had us bit by a snake. But we went out to the Pinelands, and we sat out there, and she started writing about the snails. And so I don't know what it is. I think she just needed to have maybe something she could focus on. Something she felt like, you know, she was interested in particular in writing about. And we need more nature writers. So I'm excited.
I'm gonna do my little NPR impersonation. We have 30 seconds left, and so great. Okay, we have 30 seconds left, or a short time left. How has the residency impacted your artistic practice, briefly, as a whole?
It's pushed me even more to understand the need for representation. How important it is for us to see each other in space. How important it is as an artist to tell the whole story, not just the parts that make you comfortable, not just the parts that you think people will like you for, but the whole of it. If your goal is to tell the truth and speak truth to power, then you have to start with yourself. There's a level of vulnerability in that I have had to have during the month of February, you know, that I was out there. But yeah, it's only gotten deeper. It's only given more education. And like I said, now I have the ability to have more stories to share with my community and more ways to continue to build relationships and connectivity with each other.
Farron, do you have anything else that you want to ask Arsimmer or interested about?
I mean, I have a whole, I really do. That I will parse through. So what's home to you? Bring us back to that.
Bring us back.
Home is my mother. Home is my daughter. Home is community care. Home is community support. Home is real. It is the shedding of all the material. It's the shedding of feeling like an imposter or thinking you're not good enough. Home is validating your own self through your own work and having a community of people to continue to push you to understand how important that is. Yeah.
I want to answer that too, because it has to do with you. I realized with this whole, with the homecoming project and reviewing it, home is what reminds you of yourself. And being in close contact with you and in conversation with you brought that to life for me. I knew about you before actually meeting you, and I knew you from the love people emitted when they were talking about it. And then when I finally met you, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like we're speaking the same language. And so that's what I was thinking about when we were talking about land and the power of land to always recalibrate us. And if we let it be the navigational tool, it can bring you back to yourself. And to be in conversation with you, Arsimmer, is to be reminded of yourself. Thank you for just taking up yourself as boldly and fully and courageously as you do, because you are reminded to everyone in your force field there.
That's not what you said. That's not what you said. It's people watching. Why would you do that? Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna speak in here in this very unpracticed way and just thank everyone for being here. Thank you for being here live in the room with us. This is very, very exciting. Thank you for being out there on the web. I think this is a really great way to reach people. And we're gonna launch a poll because feedback is always super helpful for us. So I'm gonna do that right now. And again, I want to thank Faren Humes. I want to thank Arsimmer McCoy. I want to thank everyone watching. Thank you, Tracy, Robertson Carter, for hosting us tonight and leading the way for AIRIE.
Oh, one last shout out to Poetry for the People, the collective Poetry for the People, for your education, your support. Thank y'all. My mama. Hi, mom.
And thank you, Houston Cypress.
And my auntie Dee too, for her continuing work for my family. Thank you.